The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
You're kidding. Tomlin too? Really? This one seems to be a resignation. John Harbaugh, clearly a firing, but the reaction to the resignation of Mike Tomlin as Steve Bisciotti, owner of the Ravens, was conducting his news conference to explain the firing of Harbaugh is priceless. We will get to that. And you think it's possible that Harbaugh winds up in Pittsburgh and Tomlin winds up in Baltimore? Nah, couldn't be. I don't know. Stranger things have happened in sports. Fritz Peterson and Mike Kekich traded wives in spring training for the Yankees in 1973. That may be their wildest trade of all time. Trade of coaches in this case? I don't think it's impossible. I think there is a slight possibility. And I say very, very slight. I think it's more likely that Harbaugh winds up in Pittsburgh than Tomlin winds up in Baltimore. But very, very interesting day yesterday with the NFL, as it always is at this time of year. And we'll get to the reaction in Baltimore to the Tomlin firing and reaction to Tomlin exit. And Tony and Mike weighed in on that on PTI yesterday. I'll play that in just a minute or two. But I wanted to start with this, and maybe you didn't even care. I didn't watch any of it because it's a 10:30 tip, and that's way too late for me. But that's the life of a Big Ten team these days. You play in different time zones. It is what it is. And Maryland, as a member of the Big Ten, has to play games in Los Angeles. Not as bad over the weekend when they played at UCLA in what was an 8 o'clock start on a Saturday night, but last night, 10:30 tip in Los Angeles against USC. Way too late for me. And once again, Maryland lost the game by double digits. They lost 88-71. And they are now 7-10 on the season, 0-6 in the Big Ten. And Buzz Williams is almost certainly going to wind up with a losing record. And the last full-time coach for Maryland to have an overall losing record for the season, not necessarily just in conference, but overall, because you load up on all these, cupcakes in the early part of the season, that was Bob Wade. Bob Wade, I believe, went 9-20 at Maryland in his last year before Gary Williams took over. Bob Wade was a disaster. A great high school coach, not ready for the next step because of the lying that he did to the NCAA. Maryland was put on probation, and it's all part of the long history of the team. But I'm not saying that Buzz Williams is doing anything wrong, anything illegal for sure. But this is, I guess, going to be the whiplash nature of the sport going forward, even more so than football, because in football, you got to change out a lot of guys. In basketball, you can literally have a brand new team every year. And that's exactly what Maryland has this year. The team that went to the Sweet 16 last year, forget it. They're all gone. The coach is gone. It's a new coach, new team, new players. Problem is they're not all freshmen. A lot of them are seniors. They're going to leave this year, and he's going to want a lot of them to leave because apparently he's done quite well in recruiting. But, you'd expect of a team that went to the Sweet 16 last year that at least they'd be competitive this year. They're not. The 0-6 record in the conference, and you look at the last 3 games, all double-digit losses, true, last 2 on the road, but not against ranked teams. They lost to UCLA over the weekend, 67-55, and they lost again last night at USC, 88-71. And after losing at home a week ago to Indiana, also by double digits, 84-66, Buzz Williams said this, and listen carefully to what he says about losing and the fact that his team, as he says here, has stopped losing. That was 2 losses ago. They apparently haven't stopped losing.
Coaches are doing a great job of identifying measurables. Our practices are much more impactful in regards to how we're spending the itinerary of what impacts winning. In some ways, I think we've stopped losing, and we've had momentum in the process of all of this. We just haven't had momentum in the results. And so, just like I told them, we'll keep auditing how we can improve, and we'll keep building on the things that we know we're having success with, and the things that we're deficient in, we've got to continue to find ways to improve. Whether you're at home, whether you're on the road, we've got to continue to search for these margins of improvement and chase after it with a relentless spirit of where is one other thing. And that for sure is me at the front of this. I've got to do a better job. And I'm trying to professionally, with great poise, apply appropriate pressure to everyone in the program for those margins.
All right. He goes on to basically back up this 4-second soundbite.
In some ways, I think we've stopped losing.
You want to hear that again?
In some ways, I think we've stopped losing.
Well, you don't want to lose, and all this talk of the improvement that you're supposed to see, last 2 losses since you said that are very similar to the loss that you said that statement after. It was the 84-66 loss to Indiana at home. Since then, they've lost at UCLA 67-55, and they lost last night at USC 88-71. Where's all this improvement coming from? You play to win the game, and they're not winning games. They've lost 4 straight, 7 of their last 8, and most importantly, they are winless in the Big Ten. And I'll tell you what, there's a game coming up on Sunday, which is a must-win, because if they don't win this game, it's possible that they could go 0 for the Big Ten. They may pull an upset here and there, but I think 2-3 years ago under Patrick Ewing, I think Georgetown was winless in the Big East. I don't think they won a Big East game. And Maryland gets on Sunday at home, they get Penn State. And Penn State is 0-5 in the Big Ten. It's a home game against another winless team in the Big Ten. If they don't win that game, man, and, all this discussion about, we've stopped losing. No, you haven't stopped losing. You have continued to lose, and you lose by the same margin just about every night. What's the last close game that Maryland has had? I have to look that up, but the last 3 have all been lopsided games, all Big Ten losses, 1 of them at home, 2 of them on the road. And I don't know, maybe nobody cares, and that's the worst part about it. There was a time in this town where Maryland basketball was number 2 to the Redskins. Maybe that's fading away. Maybe that era is gone. But for a team that made the Sweet 16 last year to stink this bad, and it's understandable, new coach, all new players, but, you hired Buzz Williams to get your program in the right direction. And it's a new athletic director, too, and Jim Smith. I guess he did make the hire because I think there was he may not actually. I have to look that up. He may have actually gotten here after he was hired, but that's a mess. That's an absolute mess. The big news dropping yesterday afternoon: Mike Tomlin resigning after 19 years as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tony and Mike leading off PTI with their reaction.
Tomlin has led the team for 19 years without a losing season, but the Super Bowl winner has dropped his last 7 playoff games, and the team hasn't won in the postseason in 9 years. Well, Tomlin is just 53. Where do you see him and the Steelers going from here?
I don't see him going with the Steelers anywhere since he has stepped down. The Steelers will go and do what they haven't had to do very often in their history, which is go and select a coach. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, it doesn't happen very often. So they'll do that. I'm sure they've had their eyes on a short string of candidates for weeks. Because, Tony, going back to when there were the boos, when Mike Tomlin was booed and people suggested fans in Pittsburgh that he'd be fired, I remember thinking then, Mike Tomlin needs this? Really? He needs this. I know he makes a lot of money. He's making whatever in the teens of millions of dollars, somewhere between $13, $16 million. He can make more than that in TV. That's where I expect him to go. I told you weeks ago, Mike Tomlin can reset television as a form of entertainment, football as a form of entertainment on television in a way that no one has since John Madden. And that may be new ways we don't know about. It may be one of the existing ways with an existing network or platform. I don't know. I'm not a television executive. But Mike Tomlin, who you have loved to hear talk and talk to for 20 years, Mike Tomlin would be great at that.
Yeah.
Why does he need coaching? It's been forever. He's going to make more than $20 million no matter what he does without the stress. Yeah. I don't see him coaching next year. I don't.
Okay, so let me take a few things at a time. There was a very interesting name being mentioned on the internet as the next coach of the Steelers, and that's Curt Cignetti.
Yeah,
Kurt Cignetti would be very interesting. I think he's from that area. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that one out there. It's somebody else's idea. Look, last night after that game, it would have been fair to say in any discussion, did we just see the last of Aaron Rodgers and we just see the last of Mike Tomlin?
Yeah.
In Aaron Rodgers' case, he looked old. He looked sort of creaky, and he's got physical demands that at a certain point he can't do anymore. Mike Tomlin's only 53 years old. Right. A lot of guys coaching in the league older than him. Sean Payton's older than Mike Tomlin, for example. I don't know if he wants to coach again. John Harbaugh wants to coach again, wants to coach right away. Maybe Mike Tomlin does as well. If Atlanta looks good for John Harbaugh, it looks just as good for Mike Tomlin. So one of the things that we don't know. TV is fine to mention. I don't know if he wants to do television. Nobody really knows what he wants to do. I think the questions that are out there are essentially, well, everybody wonders, did he jump or was he pushed? That's not what the Rooneys do.
He jumped.
The Rooneys don't do that as a rule.
They don't.
I always thought that if he was going to leave, that would be one of those things. It's a cliche, mutually agreed upon. But I believe the respect was such between Tomlin and the Rooneys that it would have been mutually agreed upon.
Yeah.
You know, the bell rang. I'm just going to say that I always thought he was a great coach. I'm confident he's a Hall of Fame coach, but it is true. And I would never have joined that group chanting Fire Tomlin.
No, that's stupid.
But it is undeniably true that the playoffs have been terrible for him lately.
And
terrible.
Tony, even if they hadn't been enough, how long is enough? 19 years of that kind of stress in today's NFL.
Yeah.
This isn't George Halas's NFL. And George Halas, by the way, broke his 40 years of coaching up into 4 groups of 10 years. He didn't even try to go 19. Mike, it's a long time.
You're sitting in the same seat for 25 years.
I took a
What's
break.
long to one is not long to somebody else. I mean, I do expect him to coach again. I think that's in his blood.
You expected Cowher to coach again, too. And I ran into Bill Cowher down the street from this studio one day, and he said, do me a favor. Tell Tony I'm never coming back. Told the truth.
But others do.
I'm just
others
saying.
do come back.
Just saying.
I'll play what Bill Cowher said about the fact that he didn't return after leaving the Steelers 19 years ago to make way for Mike Tomlin. I mean, think about that Mike Tomlin is only the third coach for the Steelers since 1969. So, in other words, the last 57 years, the Steelers are now undergoing their third head coaching search. That's just unbelievable. What stability he's had there. And I don't listen to sports radio in the afternoon. I'm home then, and I'm just doing other things. But I see things on social media about what's being said. Apparently, there are 2 guys on the other station who were suggesting, not more than suggesting, urging, from what I read, urging Josh Harris to at least make a call to Mike Tomlin to gauge his interest. Okay. Here's what Mike Tomlin would say if Josh Harris reached out to him. Are you kidding me? I don't know if he'd call him an MFer, but I wouldn't blame him if he did. You got a coach there who took you to the NFC Championship game a year ago, and this year blew up because of injuries, mainly to the quarterback, who was the main reason you got to there in that first year, and now you're looking to move on from him. I just left a place where they've had 3 coaches since 1969. I was there for 19 years, lost 7 straight playoff games, and could have stayed if I wanted to. And you want to move on from this guy? What happens to me if I have like a bad year after 2 good years? No, it'd be insane. It'd be a stupid, idiotic thing for Josh Harris to do, and he knows that. He's smart enough to know that. And just to maybe generate calls on your radio station, you bring up this, let's call Mike Tomlin. That's a Dan Snyder move, because Dan Snyder didn't care about the people who work for him. And one thing that Dan Quinn has to know is that the owner has his back. Now, he may change his mind and move on from him. And Quinn knows that he cannot have another season next year like he had this year. But he's already, just because somebody became available, who, by the way, the Pittsburgh fans are kind of happy to get rid of because it's been a long time since they won a Super Bowl. So, no, you don't call Mike Tomlin. And you stick it out with Dan Quinn. And you hope that what happened in 2024, at least you can reach something close to that in 2026 and maybe even contend in 2027. Or the way things work year to year in the NFL now, you may contend next year. You have a healthy year. Jaden Daniels is even better than he was in 2020. But you're gonna contact Mike Tomlin just because he's available and basically stab your coach in the back? No, you don't do that. That's idiotic. Mike Tomlin, great coach. He's also under Steelers control for 2 more years, so if anybody wants him, they're going to have to compensate the Steelers to get him. And the speculation seems to be that Tomlin will go to TV for a year and then will be up for bid in 2027. And if anybody wants him, and teams will want him for sure, but if he's interested in going to another team, that they will have to compensate the Steelers. Also, the list of teams that you're hearing that are interested in him, supposedly, teams like Cleveland and Vegas, they're a mess. He's not going there. He worked for the Rooneys. He's going to find a situation that's great. If he does want to coach this year, as crazy as it sounds, the Baltimore job is the best job for him. It is. It's great ownership there. They don't fire coaches either. Steve Bisciotti's had 2 of them. One of them he inherited in Brian Billick. So he's really only hired 1 coach since he took over ownership of the team, which is 15 years ago, more than that. It wasn't long after they won that Super Bowl in 2001. So he's over 20 years, probably over 22, 23 years he's owned the team. He's hired 1 coach. So that would be an organization to work for. And you have a 2-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. And let's be fair to the whole Steelers organization. The only quarterbacks that they've won Super Bowls with were Ben Roethlisberger, who won 2, one for the previous coach, and Bill Cowher, and Terry Bradshaw, who won 4. They got to 1 more Super Bowl with Neil O'Donnell, lost to the Cowboys. He threw 2 interceptions to Larry Brown, 1 for a pick 6, I believe, and that's it. So, you got to have the quarterback. And I think Mike Tomlin also looked at, I'm not going to have Aaron Rodgers next year. Who am I going to start over with? He inherited Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger delivered 2 Super Bowls, 1 for each of the 2 coaches, after Chuck Noll, who won 4. So there's that. And one other thing on the Commanders here, this is being reported that Brian Flores is being the Commanders have requested an interview. He's a great defensive coordinator. I don't know about coordinators making a lateral move. I know that Marvin Lewis did this with Baltimore. And he got what was then an incredible amount of money to be a defensive coordinator in Washington, $600,000, which is nothing now. That's what they're paying probably quarterbacks coaches. But that's what he got to come here for Steve Spurrier in his first year in 2002 and was able to make the lateral move. I don't know if Brian Flores could do this. And Flores, why would he want to come here? Maybe he this is the way things work too. Maybe he does sense Quinn's blood in the water, knowing that Dan Quinn has to have a great year really a good year anyway, to stay on. Does he look at this situation? Got a great quarterback in Jaden Daniels, an owner who's willing to spend some money, got some cap room. If it doesn't work out for Quinn, I'd be in line to get the job. I don't know how that works. I don't. But I'm not sure why Brian Flores would make a lateral move from Minnesota to Washington, other than, and I don't think it's just a matter of money, because he can get money in Minnesota too. There's no salary cap on coaches. All right, coming up, Steve Bisciotti's amazing reaction to learning that, in fact, Mike Tomlin is suddenly available. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
It's amazing the way the last week has unfolded with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens looking for a coach after John Harbaugh got the boot the day after the Ravens lost to the Steelers, although there was an interesting comment yesterday from Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the Ravens, saying that if the kick had been good, if the field goal had been made, that John Harbaugh would have been the coach another week. Like it sounded like he had made up his mind to move on from John Harbaugh, short of some kind of a miracle run to the Super Bowl this year. And then you look at Mike Tomlin and you go, well, okay, Tomlin got his team back into the playoffs, and they're going to get to host a playoff game. And everybody who had weighed in on this and people who thought they were in the know, including Tony Dungy, who played for the Steelers and coached for the Steelers under Chuck Noll, said, "Oh, no. I talked to Art Rooney. Everything is fine. Mike Tomlin, he's not going anywhere." A lot of the experts said that. No, not going. Insiders, not just reporters, but people like Tony Dungy, Hall of Fame coach, who is kind of a kind of mishpucha there with the Steelers. So he's no, he's not. And then comes the news. Oh, wait a minute, Tomlin is resigning, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the fan base during the year is saying fire Tomlin. There just comes a time when you've had enough. Like you had Bill Belichick, who lasted 26 years in New England with 6 Super Bowls. But when the sledding got tough, they pushed him out the door. Don Shula, similar run, 26, 27 years in Miami, had unbelievable success early on as they had the undefeated team. I think it was his 3rd year on the job, and then went back-to-back with another Super Bowl. Actually, it was 3 straight Super Bowls because they got their doors blown off by Dallas in the first one. He got back to only one more, and that was with Dan Marino in 1983 when they lost to the Redskins. And so by the time it was, time for him to go, 13 years later, they hadn't had anywhere near that kind of success. They'd been a playoff team, great team with Dan Marino, just not good enough. And it was time for Jimmy Johnson was kind of shoving him out the door too, because Jimmy Johnson had left the Cowboys and he was on television. He was kind of beating the drum that he wanted to coach the Dolphins because he lives down there in the Florida Keys, and that was going to be convenient for him. They hired Jimmy, and Jimmy didn't produce a Super Bowl either. So you look at Mike Tomlin leaving, and as this news breaks, Steve Bisciotti, who had not talked to the media in 4 years, kind of surprised about that because he's good with the press, as you'll hear, and is known as a good owner, but just had not talked to the media in 4 years. Dan Snyder used to get criticized for that all the time, but there would be times when he'd fire 3 coaches over a 4-year period. So there's that too. But Bisciotti yesterday is talking to the media about the firing of John Harbaugh, and I'll get to his reasons why in a moment. But a reporter breaks in to give him what is breaking news.
Mike Tomlin stepped down at Pittsburgh.
He did? Is it official?
That's what I keep hearing. So is he a candidate here?
Holy shit, Mike, wouldn't that be awesome? Only if John takes the Pittsburgh job. Wow, wouldn't that be interesting? I don't know, that thing last week maybe disqualified him for my opening after our kicker missed a kick to let them advance. Good for Mike. Yeah, I don't know. Talk to him. I love Mike. I mean, I've admired Mike for 18 years, and that's really shocking. He
did allow his mind to wander, didn't he? I think it's worth a call anyway. And he did just fire someone who was the main rival of Tomlin all those years. I don't know. And I don't think it's going to happen, but just the reaction there from Bisciotti, even the joking around, holy bleep. How about that? Wouldn't that be something? Oh, but only if, and believe me, for the 2 coaches, that could be the best situation for each of them, going to stable organizations. That might make the most sense. Anyway, what the news conference was about was why this happened. Why did John Harbaugh get fired after 18 years? Bisciotti with the explanation.
We led the league in giving up big leads in the fourth quarter, It's not something that winning organizations do. We have underperformed based on our seeding in the playoffs. Very disappointing. A lot of players involved, a lot of our great players involved, making mistakes that they don't make during the regular season very often. But I just thought it was something that in the last 10 years, we've won the third most games in the NFL, and yet people were saying we were underachievers. And so we were, and we had to own that. And I really can't tell you the actual time, Jameson, but sometime last week. I wasn't 100% sure until really after the loss. And, fell on my instincts. And whatever I was feeling was right. I woke up Monday and I was pretty sure that, I was going to do it. And, I've got great partners here and spent a lot of time with them and asking them their opinions. And, I made the decision, and it was a hard one.
Now, there was a report that the news came to Harbaugh as he was driving home from the team facility after locker cleanout, the day after they lost to Pittsburgh. Just as they do here at the end of the season, everybody clears out the lockers and there's a news conference. And then he was driving home and he got the call from Bisciotti that he was being fired. Now, we haven't heard from Harbaugh on this. He hasn't commented on this, but the story was, oh, man, that's really getting the shaft there. I mean, he doesn't even get called into the office, just gets a call in his car. He's driving home that he's fired. Maybe there were some ruffled feathers there. Maybe there was some anger. But this is how Bisciotti, and I don't think he's lying about this. I think he's telling the truth. But this is how Bisciotti paints how the firing went down as Harbaugh is driving home, and ring, 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 there's a call from Steve Bisciotti.
Obviously, it was emotional, and I'll be honest with you, most of that emotion came from me. I told my brother, I said it was the craziest firing in the world. I was the one choked up, and he was the one consoling me. He said, "You don't owe me anything," and you can picture, John, you don't owe me anything. He said, "You gave me 18 years. He said, "You picked a special teams guy. Who does that?" He said, "You altered mine and Ingrid's life forever because you took a chance on me. I am happy and content and disappointed, but I love you and I respect you and I respect your decision." And, at the time, it was not something that I was going to spend a lot of time with. And so, I called him on Thursday and I left a message and I said, "Hey, I'm around for the next few hours. I'd love to talk." And he texted me back. He said, I'll call you in about 30 minutes. And we had a really good conversation. And, interestingly, he didn't talk about the details. I talked about the negative narratives of things that we own together. And I said, John, probably one of the things that made it easier for me once I came to this conclusion is I didn't have to worry about whether you were going to land on your feet, because I think either your toes or your heels are already touching, and you're going to become the most sought-after coach in years. And then I talked to him about taking a year off. I said, you're 63 years old. Allison just went to law school. You're an empty nester. If you go to work for somebody else, I get offset, so I'm saving a whole lot of money. But I'd be more than happy to give you a very expensive paid vacation for a year if you and Ingrid would pray on that and come to the decision that you could go out and travel and golf together and rifle. She's a marksman now, and they do love to travel when they're free. And I said, a whole year of that at 63 is a lot different than if you take another job and that is 75.
Okay, that's a very good point, and I'm in that demographic right now, so I totally understand what he's saying. But two problems with this. One is that John Harbaugh came off the Andy Reid tree. Andy Reid was younger, but not that much younger than 63 when he was fired by the Eagles, and a lot of people looked at that situation. He'd been there, I don't know, 10, 12 years, like, hey, Andy, take a year off, figure out what you want to. Nope. Kansas City Chiefs come along. They offer the job. And he didn't know he's getting Patrick Mahomes. He took that job in Kansas City. I think he's second or first as the longest tenured now. And he jumped back in. And Andy Reid is John Harbaugh's mentor. They work together in Philadelphia. So I'm sure there's going to be a call to Andy Reid about that. And he's actively looking for jobs now. He's interviewing all over the place. So I think he's going to land someplace. Atlanta was where he was the other day. The Giants apparently want him. So there's that. And the other thing about taking a year off at 63, then he is 64. He hasn't coached in 2 years. And the last time he coached, he had a potential MVP candidate, or at least a two-time MVP in his prime in Lamar Jackson, and he didn't get him to the playoffs. So that could work against him. So, it's like you sometimes have to strike when the iron is hot. And, not that at 64 with a year off, John Harbaugh wanted to get a job, he wouldn't get a job. But right now there are 9 openings. Is it 9 or 8? 8 openings in the NFL. And, no, it's 9. I think it's 9. Right. Yeah, 9 with Pittsburgh. So, there's a lot of choices out there. A lot of teams are after him, and probably the best thing for him for his career, if he wants to continue to coach, and apparently he does, is to not take a year off and to get back in, because you're seeing all these guys who are getting coaching offers. Like, Marcus Freeman has never coached in the NFL. Marcus Freeman already put out a statement, no, I'm coming back to Notre Dame, and NFL teams are going, yeah, sure. And Pittsburgh has been mentioned as a prime spot for him to go. They're looking for guys who are in their 30s and their 40s. I mean, even Dan Quinn coming here 2 years ago, 53, 54, whatever he was like, oh, wow, they're thinking outside. They're not hiring the typical 30 or early 40-ish offensive guy. It's a defensive guy who's considered old at 53. And Mike Tomlin at 53, he's, still somewhat young, but he's being a decade younger than John Harbaugh. I think he can more afford to take a year off, and it's going to be more difficult to get things done because he's got 2 years left under Pittsburgh control, and he may not, that may be something that other teams are not interested in hurdling. Speaking of those contracts like that, you may not have heard this story before, but when Joe Gibbs retired from the Redskins after the 1992 season, he was only 52 years old. He had won the Daytona 500, and I think that had a lot to do with his decision to retire because he did it in March. Daytona was late February. He retired in March. It certainly helped Richie Pettibone, who was ready to step in as the head coach, though his 1 year was a disaster. But Gibbs is out there not very long, so he's out 92. There's an announcement in 94 that there's going to be expansion in the NFL. Maybe it was even 93 when they announced it, so it might have been only a year out. They announced they were adding 2 teams. They were going to add Jacksonville and Carolina. Well, he's based in Charlotte with his race team, and it seemed like, okay, this makes perfect sense, an expansion team. We're going to bring in Joe Gibbs as the head coach. I mean, what kind of you can't make a bigger splash than that. 3-time Super Bowl champion, headed for the Hall of Fame. He wasn't quite in yet, but we're going to do that. And he was interested. He wanted to talk to them. However, Jack Kent Cooke said, no, you walked away with time left on your contract, so you can't go to Carolina. I've got control of that. Now, I guess there was no discussion about Carolina working out compensation if they hired him or anything like that. Jack Kent Cooke said, hey, if you want to come back, job's open. You can have it. And he said, well, you haven't paid me. And Cooke said, well, your paychecks are stacked up on my desk. This is before, I guess, you had direct deposit. I don't know. But anyway, they did wait the time. So he was, I guess they waited through the 93 season because Jacksonville had already hired a coach. They hired Dom Capers as their first coach, and he was already making preparations for the draft and all that stuff. They waited for Gibbs, and Gibbs came in and talked to them. At that point, he was free because his contract had expired in Washington, and they told him that they wanted to draft a young quarterback and build around him, and Gibbs said, no, I need to have a veteran in there to get started, and that's where apparently it broke off. So maybe it goes that route with Tomlin. Maybe it goes that route with Harbaugh, I guess, is fired, so he's free to go. But Tomlin's situation is a little bit different, and I think it's got to be something that's absolutely right for him and right for the team, in that they would have to give up compensation to get him. So that's fun stuff from yesterday with the Steelers and the Ravens. All right, coming up, Bill Cowher. He walked away from the Steelers and never went back. Will Mike Tomlin do the same? We'll get Cowher's thoughts as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. When the movie Animal House came out in 1978, everybody had a big laugh when the boys at the Delta House were about to be kicked out by Dean Wormer. And John Belushi said, 7 years of college down the drain. It's not such a joke anymore. Wait till I tell you this story of a quarterback who's about to go to his 7th school. Yes, indeed. You can do anything you want in college sports these days. And the story of TJ Finley is one for the books. We'll delve back into Mike Tomlin and his departure from the Pittsburgh Steelers, reaction on that, and a whole lot more. But before we do that, I wanted to pass along this story in case you're not familiar with a gentleman by the name of TJ Finley, who is a big guy, big athletic talent. He's 6'7", kind of quarterback who can run, do a lot of good things. So far, he hasn't made the NFL because he's been seeing the country transferring from school to school. And he has just signed to play for Incarnate Word. That is what's called an FCS program. It's what James Madison used to be before Kurt Cignetti drove it to prominence, and now they play with the big boys. But let's go through the collegiate history of TJ Finley, because I think it's fun to look at. He was a 3-star quarterback out of Louisiana and committed to stay in state for powerhouse LSU. He's a member of the 2020 recruiting class. They had recently lost Joe Burrow. That's how long ago it was. And the starter for that team was supposed to be Miles Brennan, but Brennan got hurt. So Finley came in as a true freshman, went 2-3, completed 57% of his passes, nearly 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, touchdown on the ground. Not great, but thrown into the fire early. Could have been worse, right? But that was a year that didn't count because 2020 was a COVID year. So he got experience, didn't count, fine. He's still got 4 years of eligibility. If he has to sit for a year, that's fine. But he gets to the spring, and there's a 3-way battle for the quarterback job. Brennan is healthy again, ready to compete for it. Max Johnson, who I also believe may have eligibility. I think. Where was he? Was he at Texas A&M this past year? Or maybe he'd been through Texas A&M. He was with Belichick at one point at North Carolina. I mean, it's maybe that's where he was this past year, North Carolina, Max Johnson. But anyway, it looked like at this point Finley wasn't going to win the job at LSU, so he landed at Auburn in the transfer portal, where he began the year as the backup to Bo Nix. You know where Bo Nix is now. He, of course, has made another stop after Auburn at Oregon. He was there for a couple of years. Now is in his second year in the NFL. That's how long that's been. But when he got to play, didn't play that well for Auburn. They were 0-3 when he was in the lineup, and he got hurt, and he only played 3 games. And since he only played 3 games, didn't count. Redshirt year. So there you go. Gets to move on. May of 2023 in the portal for the second time. Goes to Texas State. Well, at Texas State, he actually played a full season. Bobcats win 8-5. They went to the First Responder Bowl. He had a good year, 3,400 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And, okay, now he's at his 3rd school. He's finally found a home, right? Oh, no. Turned out that he became the father of twin boys in the fall, which led to his next portal decision. He said, it's not feasible for me unless you all can come up with something that we could do better in my situation, meaning I need more cash to stay. Well, it's Texas State. So Texas State didn't have the cash that he was looking for. So he had to make, as these guys say, the right decision for his family, to provide for my boys. And he said, I would have just packed it up and worked at UPS or something like that, but the money and the NIL aspect of it was a big factor. Of course it was. So he went to Western Kentucky. And just 3 games into that season, he suffered an ankle injury, which required 2 surgeries, ended his season, and his 7th year of eligibility now rests on an argument for a medical redshirt from that 2024 season. But there was another stop along the way. He transferred to Tulane, but that ended before it began because he was arrested for illegal possession of a stolen car. In August, just days before the season started, he went to his 6th program, Georgia State. Made 6 starts in 7 appearances, but once again was in the portal because the Panthers' offensive identity, he said, didn't fit his skill set. So now he is an Incarnate Word, his 7th school since starting college in 2020, and is hoping to play, depending on the ruling on that medical redshirt year, at 6'7", he may have ability to play in the NFL. He's certainly been through a lot of offenses in college, and Incarnate Word does this. They had a losing season this past year with E.J. Colson, who had been through Purdue and the University of Central Florida. So he had made a couple of rounds there and landing in San Antonio last year for a losing season. Zach Calzada began his career at Texas A&M before playing with Finley at Auburn. They've intersected before. Threw for 3,700 yards, 35 touchdowns in 2024 for Incarnate Word. Played at Kentucky this past season. Yeah, all these places to go. Former LSU quarterback Lindsey Scott Jr. made his 5th college stop with the Cardinals, throwing for 4,600 yards and 60 touchdowns, 8 interceptions in 2022. And the most famous quarterback to go through the halls of Incarnate Word, Cam Ward, who would go on to become the number 1 pick of the draft this past year. So just for review here are the stops for J.T. Finley: LSU 2020, Auburn 2021, Auburn 2022, Texas State 2023, Western Kentucky 2024, Georgia State 2025, and now Incarnate Word. Best of luck to you. Okay, Mike Tomlin, just the opposite. Stayed in one place. Stayed in one place for 19 years. Got the job as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers at the age of 35. And these were his parting words after his team lost on Monday night at home to Houston, 30-6.
Particularly when you're in this tournament, talk's cheap. It's about what you do or don't do, and certainly as a collective, we didn't do it tonight.
Mike, you mentioned the missed opportunities. Is that something that weighs on a team as you go mentally, especially?
No, I didn't believe that it eroded us, in any way. But certainly, comes a point in time where you got to make plays, and we just didn't do that. But I didn't think it was any collective mental attrition to it. It's just we didn't make plays.
Anyone else? Mike, do these moments get any more difficult for you as the years go on?
I don't necessarily compare it to any other moment. It's the here and now, and certainly it's difficult. But that's what we sign up for, and that's the life we live.
Mike, how do you approach a decision about your future?
I'm not even in that mindset as I sit here tonight. I'm more in the mindset of what transpired in this stadium and, certainly what we did and didn't do. Not a big picture mentality as I sit here tonight.
Walked off the field with Cam and Aaron together all season this year. Tonight you walked off pretty quickly with Aaron behind you. Just kind of what happened there?
What do you mean?
You've walked off with the 2 of them.
I only walk off the field with those guys on road victories. So, if you've been paying attention, that's what it is. I walk off the field with those guys on road wins. And so certainly tonight didn't fall into that category.
No, it did not. So that was the end of Mike Tomlin. That was Monday night. Yesterday morning, Bill Cowher, who was the previous Steeler coach to walk away, that was after the 2006 season, that's how long ago that was, and he has spent the time in between working in television, 19 years now at CBS. And Cowher talking to Dan Patrick yesterday. This was before the announcement that Mike Tomlin was leaving the Steelers, but it was in the wind. And Dan wanted to get a sense from Cowher, what it might be like to be in Mike Tomlin's shoes, walking away after all those years at a young age, and in Cowher's case, never coming back to coach again.
You stepped away from football. What were you, 49 or 50?
49.
Okay.
Yeah, 49.
When you stepped,
you're not going down this path again now.
No, I want to know what you thought as far as your coaching future when you stepped away from the Steelers. Like that week, if I would have asked you, what is your coaching future, what would you have said?
Well, I mean, I love coaching. Even to this day, I've got so much respect for it. My mind was a lot more involved with that, Dan. It wasn't just about coaching. I made a decision that I prioritized my family, and particularly my wife at the time, who needed me to be there. And it was a time where we moved to Raleigh. My youngest daughter was going in 10th grade, and we made a commitment for 3 years with whatever we were going to do with our kids, because coaching could be one of those professions that I didn't want my kid going from 3 different high schools in their 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So they went down. And so I coached that last year in Pittsburgh. And I sat back at the very end, and I think it was a case that, did I love that team? Yeah. And it was a team, we didn't go to playoffs, but Ben also had that off-season injury. He had the accident, and we finished out 6-2, and I knew it was a good team, it was a good staff. But I had to sit down and prioritize my life and what I thought was important. And I have no regrets to this day having walked away. Did I think I would probably come back? I did. But the more I got involved with this life that I'm living right now, the normalcy that was involved with my wife, who I'd met and had been there before, I've enjoyed this platform. I've been on now at CBS for 19 years because I do have normalcy. I do have an off season, and I still love the game, though. And I did miss coaching, and I still, to this day, at times, I miss the strategizing of it. I talked to a lot of coaches around there. There's nothing better than to scheme up a blitz where you get a guy running free, or buck the trends. And all of a sudden, we were going 5 wides when nobody was doing 5 wides in the Super Bowl against the Dallas Cowboys because we're supposed to be a running team. I love to do what you didn't expect, the illusion of one thing and doing something else. That, to me, what football is all about. It's chess. To this day, I still miss that part of it. That's why I think it's the greatest game that's out there. And so, that being said, I love my life, and I understand and respect the hours that these coaches put in, the sacrifices that their families make as well, because it's more than just you; it's your family. Because your family during the football season becomes those guys that you're seeing every day you walk in there. And you're asking them to make the sacrifice and the commitment to what we're asking them to do. So it's those wives that are at home that are raising the families, and all of a sudden you have to blend back into that degree of normalcy in the off season, even though there's not much of an off season these days for coaches. So it's a very demanding job. It's a very absorbing job. I respect that, understand that, and at the same time, it's a performance-related job, and we all know the consequences that go with that.
There's an opening on the NFL Today set. Could you see Mike Tomlin joining you on the set next year?
I don't know. Hey, listen, he's welcome. Mike and I, we could share a lot of stories. Like I have a lot of questions for him through his 19 years. We don't really talk that often. So I actually left him a beer in the refrigerator. So I don't know if he does leave. I wonder if that beer is still there. I mean, he might even still be. It's probably skunked by now. I'll just tell the next guy, you might not want to open it. It's kind of like just a memorable thing. Just leave it there.
It might have been an Iron City.
It was an Iron City. Yeah. Actually, I actually got a commemorative can. I have to send you one. It's got my face on it. So I really feel like I made it in life. I got an Iron City beer can a commemorative can with my face on a beer can. What else can you do in life?
Man, that's really appealing to be drinking a beer with your face staring right at me, Coach.
I'm gonna send you a 6-pack.
If you're John Harbaugh, what's the best place?
I don't know if there's a best place. I mean, there's a lot of openings right now. I think for John, he's going to go through it, and I think he has to sit down to see where he's most comfortable working with. I look at the players. You can look at quarterbacks. Well, who has a quarterback and who doesn't have a quarterback? But I look at John like you've done this with multiple quarterbacks. It's more about developing a team and building something that's got, like you talk about, longevity, that's got sustainability. And that to me is being able to get with a front office that you can work with, that you feel comfortable with. There's transparency. There's also collaboration. There's also creativity in what you're trying to do in terms of what you have on your roster, who you want to bring in, and the manner with which you want to do it. So I'm sure he'll have a choice of many, just like Kevin Stefanski, I would think, would have the choice of places to go as well. These are very successful coaches that have had success in the National Football League. They're not like the first-time head coaches, but there are a lot of really good first-time head coaches as well out there. So, listen, there's 8 openings right now, and it's kind of like what it usually is. It's I love seeing young guys getting opportunities for the first time, not just have to be offensive coordinators. As a matter of fact, in these 8 teams now, Dan, 4 of these head coaches have defensive backgrounds, okay? So just make sure it's like leave the fact we're not looking for the offensive guru all the time.
All right.
So sometimes developing a young quarterback, the best thing you do is have a very stout defense and a good running game and let them come along in a very nice posture with which you can develop them along the way and not ask them to do too much too early.
You talked about raising 2 daughters. What were you like when guys... 3 daughters. Oh.
3 daughters. Yeah.
What were you like when guys came over to date your daughters?
Well, I told them the same thing that I told my daughters and as I told my guys at the work, because I actually had the same theory. 3 things. Choices and consequences. So you got my daughter. Choices and consequences. Just remember that, okay? That's first and foremost. The people you surround yourself with. So I don't know we're sure where you guys are going tonight, but it's the people you surround yourself. Understand and recognize what you're walking into. Same thing with players, same thing with coaches. And the last thing, the most important thing, just understand something. Nothing good happens after midnight, and I expect her back here by midnight. So there you go. Those 3 things.
You treated these guys like they were your players in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, because I always said, I had 3 daughters at home and I had 53 boys at work.
Did you write it on a chalkboard? Did you diagram anything?
No, I was always very good with my expressions, so they knew when I was not happy about things. As you know, I wore my emotions on my sleeve, so that was never a problem.
I remember asking Charles Barkley about that, when somebody was going to come by, and he said, if I shoot the first one, word will get around. Don't come over here anymore. Not the greatest philosophy, but that's Barkley's approach to this.
I think we get the idea.
Yeah, well, Barkley's daughter actually married a Jewish guy, and this is 5-6 years ago. And they had the wedding, and Barkley's since lost a lot of weight, but at that point he said, we're going to need all hands on deck for the hora. That's the dance that's done at Jewish weddings. Then they lift up the bride's parents on chairs. So I can only imagine trying to lift Charles, probably at that point, 280, 290, whatever. Think about that. And also the intimidation factor when you go to date Bill Cowher's daughter. And if he says she needs to be home by midnight, you better do it like football coach time. You better have her home by 11:45 at the latest. So that was kind of cute. And then the idea that he never went back to coaching and he left at 49. Al McGuire won a national championship at Marquette going into that season or during that season. He said, this is going to be it. I'm done. I'm not going to coach anymore after this. I don't think he knew that there was necessarily going to be this kind of TV success in front of him. I don't think he'd done it before. He was going to try it. But he retired from Marquette at the age of 47, never coached again. And Bill Cowher, 49, never coached again, with a lot of teams probably interested in bringing him in, never did it. Let's see what happens with Tomlin and with what's happening with Matt Ryan going now to run the Atlanta Falcons and leaving CBS. That would be kind of funny to see the two former Steeler coaches side by side. I don't think we've ever had a situation like that on television. This is an interesting one. Tom Brady, as if he doesn't have enough ventures going, he is about to launch the Tom Brady Flag Football Classic, which will be at the Saudi Arabia Showcase on March 21st. And he announced this at the Fanatics studio in Los Angeles, and he had with him one of the other quarterbacks who will participate in this, It's a name you might be familiar with, Jayden Daniels.
You know, you're always looking for, like, what's next in the NFL, who's really going to carry the torch. And from a retired quarterback, there's nobody I love seeing out there playing on the field more than Jay.
I appreciate that. All
right, so that's enough nice things I'm going to say about you, because I'm wondering if your mom's going to let you come to Riyadh and play football. She going to let you?
I don't know. We might.
Regina? She's there. All right, so we got another quarterback. Jaden's going to be another one. It's going to be competitive, but I think Jaden, even though we really haven't officially competed.
Well, yeah, I mean, you decided to call my games instead of playing against them when I got in the league, so I think you're kind of scared, but now we got a chance to compete against each other.
Yeah, but I'm going to try to treat you like I treat all the Jets and the Bills all over those years.
This must be a lot of money for Jayden because he's been known to turn down a lot of things. He likes his privacy in the offseason, but he's participating in this. And the mother is there. You heard Tom Brady ask Regina, that's Regina Jackson, his mother, and she and I don't say this in a negative way, she has a lot of control over her son. She's certainly kept him on the straight and narrow, and maybe she's a little bit overprotective on dates and so forth, but there hasn't been a hint of a problem off the field with Jayden Daniels, nor I expect it to be one. But the fact that they're in on this, I don't know if the team has any say, but I just would like to, and maybe it's an overreaction, and I don't know what the field is going to look like, but it's Saudi Arabia. I know they have a lot of say in there. Robert Edwards, 1999 at the Pro Bowl, when they still played it in Hawaii, they played a flag football game in the sand, and he suffered a knee injury so bad that they nearly had to amputate his leg. And he did manage to come back and play a little bit in the NFL and played in the Canadian League, but this was a rising star. Had a great rookie year with the Patriots. His career was ruined by a knee injury playing flag football. You say, come on, Andy, relax. I'm just saying, if Jayden Daniels in this game somehow, you take a wrong step, you see what happens, Achilles snap, tendon snap, you never know. You never know. And, yeah, I mean, he might play pickup basketball in the offseason, whether he may not even be allowed to do that, but if he is, and they have these workouts that they do with the receivers and so forth. So there is some running and so forth and everything. I get all that. But this is a venture that is not in the scope of his job as quarterback of the Commanders. He is a great promise. And, God forbid in this flag football game, Tom Brady tears his Achilles. He's got to walk around in a boot for a little while. He's not going to play any more football. Jayden Daniels tears his Achilles in March. I don't think he's playing in the season, and it's not an injury that you want to have. Am I overreacting? Maybe so. I'm just looking at this and kind of cringing a little bit, and I do remember Robert Edwards. It's a long time ago, 1999, but they had to stop doing that with NFL players because of that. Like, oh, my God. It seemed like a very innocent thing. A little bit of flag football in the sand. He takes a wrong step, ligaments tear, and essentially his career ended in that moment, even though he did come back and play a little bit of football. So it's all fun and games, it's all fun and games till somebody puts an eye out. Nothing like that. But I would just be a little bit concerned about the franchise quarterback playing in a flag football game in Saudi Arabia in March. It's just me. Maybe you feel differently. All right, that's it for me. Bram is coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.